Vayakom melech chadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. And there arose a new king over Egypt that he did not know et Joseph. The most famous question, how is it possible that this new king did not know about Joseph? And I think with a proper sensitivity to Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, the question really is a non-starter. Because the word Yodea, when it is used, usually refers to intimate knowledge. The first example, V'ha'adam yada et chava ishto vatahar. And Adam knew, same word, yada, et chava ishto, Eve, his wife, vatahar, then she became pregnant. There the word yada, yodea, to know, is used as intimate knowledge. They had relations and she became pregnant. Even nowadays, in modern Hebrew, I made the mistake many years ago. I said, Ani yodea ota. I wanted to say that I know so-and-so. And many people laughed at me. He says, don't say Ani yodea ota. It's awkward. You don't say I know her. You say Ani makir ota. I recognize her. I'm acquainted with her. To know someone, even in modern Hebrew, means intimate knowledge. That meaning has transferred from the ancient speaking of Hebrew to modern Hebrew. And so when the Pasuk says, Lo yadad Yosef, of course, Pharaoh did not know Joseph intimately. So what is the Pasuk coming to tell us? What's interesting is the Rambam, in his Mishnah Torah, in Hilchot Yesodei Torah, does not talk about emunah in God at all, really, until he talks about emunah in Moshe Rabbeinu. But he talks about Yidiyat Hashem, knowledge of God. Yesod Yesodot ve'amud hachachamot leida sheyesh sham matzur rishon. It is the foundation of foundations and the pillar of wisdom to know, to have knowledge that there is an original cause of existence. There is a creator that causes all existences to being in existence constantly. And that's the first mitzvah of the 613 mitzvot, says the Rambam. Even Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Bakuda, in a time before the Mishnah Torah was written, when there really wasn't any minyan mitzvot, says the verse that we says all day, every day we say this verse, V'yadata hayom, you shall know on this day, and you shall cause it to return to your heart. Ki Hashemu b'shamayim mimal v'ala aretz b'tachat eno. There's nothing else besides for God. Rabbeinu Bachya Mekuda takes that verse and says this is a mitzvah. And so when we circle back and we analyze the pasuk, and there rose a new king over Egypt that did not know Joseph. Of course he didn't know Joseph. First of all, it's important to point out that from an academic perspective, there is seeming to be a power change in Egyptian history here. There's dynastic Egypt, and there seems to be a change to post-dynastic Egypt when there's a single tyrant. And it's interesting because the verses seem to know about this. The Psukim know about this. The Psukim talk about Paro, and then all of a sudden in Shemot, in the beginning of Shemot, it calls Paro a Melech Chadash al Mitzrayim, a new king. Even more so, Joseph seems to be in a higher position of power when the brothers first come down to Egypt. He was an Av le Pharaoh. He was like a father figure to the Pharaoh, because the Pharaoh was like probably very young. It's one of the explanations. And then at the end of last week's Parsha, Joseph has to ask permission from not Paro, but Beit Paro, the house of Pharaoh, in order to bury his father Yaakov back in the Holy Land. Why does he have to ask for permission? There are power changes occurring. And finally, in Shemot, Vayakom melech hadash asher lo yadat Yosef, there was a new king that did not know Joseph. Of course, he didn't know Joseph intimately, like the word Yodea is usually always used in the verses of the Torah. But what is the pasuk coming to tell us? He never met him. He never knew him. He never knew him intimately. Like two people who love each other and know each other. He did not know him because he never met him. Of course, he heard of him. Of course, he knew about the story. But he never knew him intimately. He never had met him. And I think the takeaway lesson is simple when we think about the question. Why is the language of Leida, Lada'at, to know, someone when between two people of intimate knowledge, is the same language that we use about the mitzvah? The Rambam uses the same language for the mitzvah of knowing God. And also, whether you go by Rabbeinu Bachivim Kura or you just say Anoch Hashem Lokecha, is the language of Yedi'ah, that knowledge. And I think the answer is quite obvious when we take a step back. But I'll let the Rambam speak for us. It's fascinating because the Rambam puts this not in Sefer Ha'ahava, the book of love, but he puts this in the end of Sefer Hamada, in the end of the book of knowledge, which is what we're talking about, to know. What does the Rambam say? What is the right way to love God? He says you have to love God like you love when you're lovesick. You can't stop thinking about your beloved. When you wake up, when you go to sleep, you can't stop thinking about your beloved. That's how we have to love God. And that's in the book of knowledge, at the end of the book of knowledge. And he says Shir Hashem is a mashal, is a metaphor. The Song of Songs is a metaphor for this entire idea. And so we should all have a bracha de Shabbos. Please, Hashem, may He bless us. That we should all attain Yediyah in Hashem. First, knowing that there is a Creator, and then, even more than that, understanding the biblical word of Yediyah, knowledge, which means intimate knowledge. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. Bye.